Well, thanks for another episode of the Optical View podcast. Today I'm joined here with
Brendan Kalijundic.
I'm excited to have you on, man.
Good, excited to be here.
It's going to be a fun one.
Episode 100.
Yes, maybe 99 too. We'll see if it gets long and I'll break you up into two. But
100 sounds better.
eh,
But yeah, we'll do it.
We'll
awesome.
see.
So what do you got?
So we'll start with some rapid fire and we'll go from there. I just want to say thanks for all the support. Like the questions that poured in were crazy. Like there's people I didn't even know message me about it. So
awesome. Well,
people that
shoot them, man.
Part of the gym and they got questions. So
sounds good.
Rapid fire questions to begin with. Favorite genre of music?
Oh, great. You want to know what? Probably country.
Did that switch?
I don't know. As I've gotten older, I really enjoy listening to country music. Yeah,
Okay.
Country.
Okay. What would you say your favorite thing about yourself is?
The favorite thing about myself? Probably that I am a very hard worker. If I have a goal, I will accomplish it, no matter what. And just like work ethic, I think is probably my biggest thing that I'm proud of about myself.
Okay. What's the best gift that you've ever received?
The best gift that I've ever received? That's a great question. Like a physical gift or like...
Whatever.
Okay, the best gift I've ever received. Probably my son. I would probably say my wife, gave me a healthy son. And, during her pregnancy, she was just like an absolute soldier. Like just watching how dedicated she was leading up to getting pregnant. And then, all the vitamins and supplements and sleep and rest that she was on, like literally her own fight camp, in my opinion, to make sure she gave me a healthy baby.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best gift I've ever had.
I'm going to flip that question around.
Okay.
Okay. What do you think's the best gift you ever gave?
The best gift I've ever gave? Probably my time.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. If a movie ever gets made about you, who would you want to play you in the movie?
Yeah, I agree. Who would I want to play? I'm not too good with actors, but that's a great question. Oh, geez. That's a good one. Let's go with... That's a good one. Next question. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
I don't know too many actors, so I can't
Neither do I, in all fairness. I don't watch movies.
I don't know
on
too
TV.
many names. What's the guy that does... Yeah, next question.
All right. I'm a big fan of tattoos, right? You obviously have a lot of tattoos on you as well.
Yep.
What's your favorite tattoo either on yourself or that you've seen on somebody else?
My favorite tattoo is probably like one of the first ones that I got in Thailand, which is the little blessing at the top of the neck, which is just for protection. And, just having that done bamboo style in Thailand was pretty cool. And to know the meaning around it and how it would be for protection and all the other blessings below it, that was probably one of my more favorite ones that I like. Yeah.
Okay. How old were you when you got that?
I was probably in early 20s.
Early 20s? Yeah. Okay. We're going to move on to this or that. Two options. You got to pick one or none.
Okay.
Audiobook or podcast?
Podcast.
Hot or cold weather?
Hot.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning or night person?
Night.
Tacos or burgers?
Burgers. Yeah.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Salad or soup?
Soup.
Android or Apple?
Android.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert or extrovert? Great question. I'm going to say introvert.
Okay. And the one that divides the podcast community here, pizza or pasta?
Pizza. And pasta. Pasta, pizza? Pizza. I'll go with pizza. Yeah. No, pasta. Pasta. Spaghetti. I love a good spaghetti.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like the thought process on that.
Yeah, no worries.
Last one for the quick questions here. Special one for you. What are your top 3 walkout songs?
Shipping off to Boston, Dropkick Murphys. And there's another one that Matteo Vogel walks out to. I had that once. I used that once. It's the I forget the name of it, but he walks out to a nice like Indian. Oh, Last of the Mohicans. Last of the Mohicans. So I walked out to that, and then I ended up sticking with Shipping Up to Boston. So those are probably my 2 favorite ones.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like Matt Embry. Matt Embry walked out to a good one when he did the
out
Durham Fight Series one.
Okay.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Now, let's start from the beginning here. Okay. Where and how did your martial arts journey start?
Martial arts journey started when my dad put me into judo. So this was like way back in the day at Maple Leaf Judo, and he would take us to training. I think I was about like 7 years old. He started training me and my brother Tristan in the basement like early on because he was a black belt in karate, and he would start training us in the basement, just getting the gloves out and the bag out, training us early. And then you know, he did his whole career through karate, and then he decided to get us into judo because he wanted to try that sport. So he enrolled us in judo. So it started in judo. So I did judo for many years and competed, and that was probably my base, was judo.
Okay. And how did you transition to more of the Muay Thai?
Muay Thai was just one of those things where, you know, the UFC became very, very popular early on, and like UFC 1, 2, and 3. And I remember watching all the VHS films back in the day. And then we found a Muay Thai club, trained up in Ottawa for a bit, trained at Pound and Pickering, and we decided to go to Thailand and just started putting it all together. So loved the workout and and then being able to get fights. So that's kind of how it all started. So my dad enrolled us in, and we just loved competing. And then I was like, oh, we can punch and kick people. Sign me up. So started doing that.
And how old were you when you were doing that?
Oh geez, probably like early teens, late teens, I'd say, like 16, 17. Yeah, probably 16, 17 years old. And
so why did you go to Ottawa?
Why did I go to Ottawa? You know what? I was just ready for a change of pace around here. I was hanging around the wrong crowd and, you know, getting into some trouble here and there. So I decided to just pack up here and have a fresh start up in Ottawa. So I just like decided to pack it up, moved to Ottawa, and walked into OAMA at the time when they had one location. It was their big Carling location, and that's when they had like a bunch of pros going. Like Mark Holst was on the come up at that time, and Crew Jeff and Nick Castiglia. So I remember going in there, started training there, became really good friends with Nick, and you know, I used him as a role model, and a couple of the other coaches that I looked up to that I was training with and under, and really kind of fell into loving the city and loving the gym, and I just ended up staying up there for a bunch of years and training, and that's why I moved to Ottawa.
Now, I do have a couple questions about Nick, but I'm going to jump back for a second here. Why Ottawa? Did you know somebody? Did you know somebody prior? Why didn't you go out maybe to Cambridge at the time?
Because I had a job opportunity at that time too. Okay. So that would have been like early 20s, I think. Yeah, early 20s. And I had a job opportunity. I was actually a restaurant manager at Jack Astor's in Whitby. Yeah. And I was working there, having fun, working my way up, and like I ended up becoming the bar manager there, and enjoyed it. It was fun, and I was training during the day, training on the weekends, working there for a career. Like it was a good career. Like my goal at that time, early 20s, was like, you know, because I worked my way up from like server, bartender, bar manager, and then they're like, you know, you could eventually be a general manager, make $100K plus a year, get your vacation and all this, and I was like, okay. And then they ended up offering me a position to go take over the Jack Astor's in Canada. So then with everything going on, with me kind of like hanging around some of the wrong people and just wanting to kind of have a fresh start and like, you know, get away from that. And like, I wanted to go somewhere and just train. And when that opportunity came up, I was like, oh, Ottawa, sounds cool, right? Capital. And I'm like, never really been up there. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go up to Ottawa. I'm going to take this job, work there and just train, put my head down, save money and train. And that's what I did. So I went up there, took over that restaurant and started training, and that was my life for a bunch of years.
And what was the dynamic of the fight scene at that time? I mean, where was MMA? Where was the Muay Thai? Where was the kickboxing? What was the landscape of Ontario and really Muay Thai in the world?
So I think at that time, MMA was illegal in Ontario, amateur and pro. The Muay Thai communities, I believe Camtao was happening at that time. And then like years after, then WAMTAC was coming around. I believe Cask was still going, which is Waco now. Yep. But a lot of the pro MMA fights were happening. Why I like being up in Ottawa, because just across the bridge in Gatineau in Quebec, they would be throwing pro fights. So it was a lot easier to kind of go be around that scene and having fighters come from Ottawa or from Quebec to train there. So there wasn't much of a scene. It was like the times where it was illegal in Ontario, right? So you had to go to Quebec or go to the reserves and stuff like that, right? So, you know, it's come a long way, but we still have so far to go with like legalization and opportunity for people that want to fight. It's very, very challenging in Ontario and Canada, right? So.
Now, I also heard a story here, and you kind of touched a little bit on it. You know, you were working at the Jack Astor's in Ottawa, and explain to me kind of the dynamic of you fighting and working at the same time. Was there ever a dilemma of finding the training and work balance?
No, not at all. It was really good because most of my shifts as the bar manager were night shifts for the most part. So I was able to train all day, go home, have a nap, and then go in and work like a 4 to 12 shift. So it was pretty easy to balance out my training. And then, you know, train every day, take Sundays off to rest, and I usually work Sundays. So my rest day is when I would work, and then I was able to train around my, and you could make a schedule around any kind of work-life balance and make work-life balance for anything. Yes.
What was the decision to come back here?
The decision to come back here was, you know, I really looked up to Nick Castiglia and a bunch of the other guys that were running the OAMA at the time, Ottawa Academy of Martial Arts. And, you know, I really saw they really had it at a high level at that time where no other gyms around here were operating at that level. And even at that time, they had some of the top fighters coming up. I just really liked how their business was run. And, you know, at that point too, I'm like, you know what, yeah, the restaurant's fun, but it was like nights, weekends, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I remember one day I was talking to Nick Castiglia, and I'm like, you know what? I think I want to open my own gym and go for it and try it. And I remember he goes, you know what? He goes, do it. And he told me, I remember this was like early 2008, 2009, maybe 2009, 2008. He's like, go for it. And he told me, he's like, go in, you know what? You should go in, quit your job, and just go for it. You only live once, and try it. And at the time, I was really close with my brother Tristan at the time, who was also training, and he would come up to Ottawa, and he was training there for a bit, but he was back at Pound for Pound training in Pickering, so we were both still training. And you know, we decided, we talked to each other. We're just like, you know what? Let's try to open a gym. Bowmanville didn't really have too much of a gym. Well, it did. It had a gym. So out of respect for the current gym that was in Bowmanville, we decided to open in Curtis because Curtis never had a gym. So we, you know, made the plan to go all in and live the gym life and open a gym. So we opened in Curtis in the Bitmore Plaza in 2011.
Now, there was a falling out with your brother somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
Right? What happened with that?
You know what happened with that? I think...
Because it's interesting. So when I've talked to other people in the community, it was always Tristan and Brendan.
Yeah.
Right? Tristan and Brendan. And, you know, they would talk about who's better and this and that and the stories of all about that. And then Tristan's name kind of dropped off. Right? And I wasn't on that really scene at the time, but, you know, looking back and knowing people now, it's interesting. And I've asked you about this before, and, you know, you've told me some things about it. I'm curious what happened with it.
Yeah, I'd say what happened with it was, like, you know, when we first opened the gym too, and we both kind of made the plan, we also, like, just like brothers, we were like, all right, so before we do this, here's what we're going to do. We literally rock, paper, scissors. We're like, one of us needs to go to Thailand and spend a year there, right? So what we'll do as a team is however we rock, paper, scissors, and whoever's going to Thailand, the other person's going to stay back, work, and send money so that person can stay in Thailand, train, fight, and, you know, get the credentials I think we wanted on top of what we had to be able to open a gym. So we could be like, hey, listen, we've been to Thailand, spent a year there, trained. So we literally sat down and we rock, paper, scissored it, and he ended up winning. So we sent him to Thailand, and, you know, my job was to stay here, hustle, work, grind, and put money into his bank account so that he could stay out there for a year. And he did it. He was a very, very talented fighter, very skilled fighter. In 2011, he ended up doing like 15 to 20 fights, and he ended up winning one of the awards out there for best foreign fighter of 2011. So he did his job, and then when he came back, I'm like, all right, we're ready to open the gym. And then we got the gym opened. We spent about 6 months, and then it was my turn to go to Thailand. So got the gym up and running. It was my time to go to Thailand. So boom, I left. I went to Thailand. And then it was his turn to like put the money in my account. So I went there, did my thing, trained, fought, got all the experience in. And you know, when I came back, the gym wasn't run exactly the way I think it should have been. There was a lot of things that we kind of had issues with. And then the main thing that happened was, you know, I was dating Kara, who's my wife now, at that time. We were grinding, and we were all grinding. There was like, we went all in on opening this gym. Kara and I ended up literally sleeping in the back closet in bunk beds. And like, we had to sell our house to keep it going because it was just like draining our money. We didn't really know what we were doing. We thought we did, like, oh yeah, open a gym, rent this place, do this, but it was harder than we imagined. So me and Kara are kind of like all in here. We're going for it, living in the gym, grinding it out. And then he ended up getting this new girlfriend at the time. And we're supposed to be a team.
Yep.
And we're supposed to be putting, like, everything we get goes into the gym. And this was like around Christmas time. And I just remember, you know, we had like no money. I couldn't buy Kara a present. I didn't have a car. We didn't have a house, living in the gym. And his girlfriend kept getting all these nice fancy gifts, a new big tree. There's, you know, they had their apartment, and then they had a kid coming. So then I called him out one day on, you know, hey, I thought we were like a team, like everything's supposed to be going in the gym. How are you getting presents for your girlfriend here? And like, I'm like sitting here with nothing in the back of the gym grinding. And after I called him out on it, he just, I think he took like a week off, and just never came back after that. And then I remember we just got in a little argument over text. It wasn't even in person. And he's like, I just remember he said something. He was just like, yeah, you couldn't run this gym without me. Good luck, try. And I was just like, challenge accepted, right? And then he just never came back. I took the gym from there, and here we are today in 2024.
Wow. So, and what was the name of the gym?
Kalsamrit Gym.
How did you come up with that name?
So the gym we were, our one of the home gyms we were training at in Thailand that when he did his year out there was Kalsamrit. That's in Bangkok, and when I went there, that's where I trained as well. And we asked Madame, who is the owner of, Boss and Madame are the owners of Kalsamrit Gym. And Kalsamrit meaning success, and then our last names being Kalijundic, so we were like Kalsamrit. We asked Madame if that'd be okay if we named it that, and she gave us the okay, made us our first walkout hoodies and corner vests, and we just decided to put our little last name in front of success, Kalsamrit Muay Thai, and that was how we decided. Yeah.
Now the walkout vests that you got, are they similar, anywhere resemblance of the ones that you wear now?
No, those were like we rocked those ones out for a good like probably 5 years, and then you know, we had a couple families from the gym put some money together and order some new in-fight styles that were a little more flashy and up to date. But I still like the old school, just plain red Kalsamrit ones, but yeah, no, the new ones were just a little bit more fresh and poppy, and we got some good vibes on those ones too.
Let's talk a little bit about the struggles that you went through, you know, opening the gym, like you just talked about, sleeping in bunk beds and grinding, right? What was the life like? Because people see the life that you have now, and that's what they think it's always like, but that wasn't the case, right?
I think it was just, with anything, you need like martial arts. If you're going to go into a fight camp or, you know, anything, you need a coach or a mentor. And, you know, even though I seen how this business up in Ottawa was run and I wanted a gym like that, there's so much more to it. Like, you need guidance and support and education, and you need to know what you're doing. It's not as easy as just opening it up, putting some mats down and thinking you can go for it. So like the struggles were like right away was, you know, the landlords taking advantage of us, not knowing what we were doing. So we went in there, the unit was completely empty. We're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll get the plumbing done, we'll get the electrical done, we'll get the HVAC done, we'll do it all. Little did we know that later on, as we went to future units and on, you can negotiate them to do the electrical, to do the plumbing, to do this, and we didn't know that. So there we are, like that's where half of our money went, was you know, doing that. We realized after that though, we could have negotiated 3 months rent free. We could have negotiated them to do the electrical or the plumbing, saves $1,000. So I think dealing with landlords that take advantage of people that don't know what they're doing was one of the big things that happened. Systems, billing, class structure, how you do everything top to bottom in the gym was just something that we didn't know, or didn't really know how to execute. You see it, but you don't know how to actually execute it. So out of the blue, it was like probably a year later into running that gym, you know, we were trying, but we were grinding. Like every month we weren't making rent. Every month we weren't making rent. I think we had about 70 members. And the rent was like $8,000 a month plus this, plus that. And, you know, Nick called me out of the blue. Nick is there from Ottawa, and he's like, hey, he's like, we're doing consulting. Like, we're helping gym owners now. Like, this is the new business that we're doing. They went from, and I remember watching them go from one gym, the Carling location in downtown Ottawa, to opening Canada. And then they ended up getting up to like 5 massive facilities. Yeah. They were one of the top gyms the top gyms with like multiple locations in Ontario. And then the owner of OEMA at that time and Nick started opening a consulting company, and he's just like, dude, like, listen, like, start working with me. Like, I'll take you to the next level and I'll help you like get past this hump and like making it worthwhile. And just a lot of advice that he had, because even at that time, my mindset was like, oh, I have to be a super successful fighter out of this gym and run the gym and do this and do that. And you know, Nick's first piece of advice was like, as we started consulting, and then basically now having a coach. So it's like, okay, so you have a coach for Muay Thai, we hold pads for you, we create camps for you, we help you with your weight cut, we tell you when to rest. If a fighter doesn't have that and he's just hitting the bag in his basement on his own, it was the same kind of thing in business. So one of the first things he told me was, you know, because I was still fighting and training at the time and trying to run the gym. So I remember he sat down, and one of the first things he said, which really hit home, was, you know, you got to pick one. He goes, do you want to be a super successful fighter and get on the path to the UFC and go that route, or do you want to run a successful business? And then at that time was like, you know, I had a ton of fights. I was fighting around the States, traveling, going to Michigan, New York, and all over fighting. And, you know, it's on my way up, but I also had other people that I was part of the circle with that I've seen get to the UFC, and then I've seen what's after, right? So like I used Antonio Carvalho, one of my role models, one of the guys I looked up to. I'm like, okay, made it to the UFC, but then what happens after, right? And then when we started talking about that, and then also, you know, I'm looking at my wife, I'm like, here I am, like mid-20s, living in the back of the gym, no car, no house, no money. I'm like, okay, do I want to chase this fight dream, or do I want to run a successful business? And at that time, it was either like close up the gym, go back into the restaurant industry, try to become a general manager and own my own restaurant, or focus on a successful business so I can make that my career. And I ended up putting fighting to the side. That was a hard decision because I loved fighting, but it was like, I'm broke as shit, right? And, you know, I have to be able to take care of my girlfriend at the time, and I made a decision to focus on the business and focus on everybody else and developing my own fighters and putting more time into the clients and the fighters instead of myself and my own fight career. I focused on the business, and you know, here we are.
And what was the timeline for that decision?
Like, you mean after I opened the gym?
When you decided, you know, or Nick gave you suggestion / advice that, you know, you got to pick one.
It was almost like probably the next day. Like, I literally sat on it, and I'm like, you know what it was? It was the next day. It was like a room like we're sitting in right now, and then I had like a little wall that had a little closet behind it. And that morning, there was a yoga class, and I'm sleeping in the back. And I remember I coughed, and then some of the girls were like, oh, is there somebody sleeping back there? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I gotta fix this. I'm like, I can't be living in my gym trying to make this happen. And, you know, being a fighter, I'm like, I gotta start making some money here. So that was basically the next day I made that. And I remember the one thing I said, because even just like being around Nick and working with Nick, like I said, I'm like, listen, I'll do everything you say. I'm like, I'm done living like this. I'm like, let's go for it. So I think I'm one of his clients it's probably one of the most successful clients that he's had, but I literally did everything he said. and kind of like I would in a fight camp.
Yeah.
Right. So if my coach said this, do that, do this, do that, I would literally do it. And it's like I see that here, like the kids or the fighters that have the most success are the ones that literally do everything I say.
Yes.
Right. And I said I'm going to basically take how I handled fight camps, and I would work hard. Like I train every morning, run every morning, do double sessions, eat clean, didn't do drugs, didn't smoke, none of that. And I basically took that same energy that I had, because I was tip-top shape fighting, right there. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take that exact same energy and work ethic I had in fight camps and put it into running a successful business. So with that kind of work ethic, up every morning, answering the emails, on the phone, teaching good classes, making sure the gym's clean, running my systems, getting my orders right, literally putting that same effort into the business. And then it went like, definitely saw the changes happen.
And now in terms of the timeline compared to when you opened up, right? So you said 2011 was when you first opened up. What was the timeline for when you made that decision to stop fighting?
I'd probably say it was probably 2013. I had a couple more fights here and there, but more or less it was like, okay, now I'm going to develop my own fight teams, my own fighters, put my energy into them. So, I had some more other things that happened too. Like we moved out of that location. There was that big white building on Highway 2 in Curtis. I remember there was a space for lease there. So we brought the owners or the people that were going to be leasing that place over, and I brought them in. I showed them a couple classes. I'm like, hey, this is what we do. Yeah. Is that going to be appropriate in your facility if we rent it out? Because the rent was half the price. So these were some of the things like Nick was getting me to do. He's like, find something way like half the rent. Yeah. So I found that spot. He said, yeah, all this will work. It's all good. So we pack everything up, move in there, renovate it, put all the mats down, and the first day that we're up there and people are trampling because it was on the second floor and there was a restaurant below, it was way too loud and they ended up evicting us right away.
Wow.
Which was another thing. And then it was like nowhere to go. They're like, no, you got to get out. There was some other stuff that happened there too. And then it was literally like we were looking for spots. There was nowhere to go. I'm like, well, I think that's it. And we ended up stumbling on this spot. And I didn't want to come to Bowmanville because I wanted to be respectful to the other clubs and not step on someone else's territory. But after a bit more to the old Tanglewood or whatever it was called. After getting out of there, well, here we are in Bowmanville, and it's basically, this is where I grew up. I live 2 minutes away, and this is now my town.
Yeah.
So here we are.
And how long were you in that other facility for?
In the Bitmore Plaza?
Yes.
I'd probably say I was there for a couple of years, maybe 2 years, something like that. 2 years, and then I moved. After 2 years, we moved to the other spot in Curtis, and we were out of there in a week, and we've been here ever since.
Out of there in a week.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And it came right to here.
Yeah.
And when the decision came to move to Bowmanville, were you worried about the competition?
At that point, no. And the reason I wasn't worried, because out of respect right away, when we first opened in Curtis, even though I'm from Bowmanville, this is where I grew up. The first Maple Leaf Judo is where I was training. And I even remember when I was training in Ottawa and Pickering, I remember I was like doing my runs around Bowmanville, and the owner of that club pulled me over. He saw me. He knew who I was.
Yep.
He pulled me over. He's like, you need to come train at my gym. He's like, I want you at my gym. There's nobody like you. You guys are like a different kind of breed. I want you in my gym. And I'm like, we're good. I had some other plans, and then we opened in Curtis. So when I opened in Curtis, because I got a lot of the guy from Bowmanville, I got a lot of his old instructors, Barry McDonald, Dylan Stainthorpe at the time, and a bunch of others. I started hearing all the stuff that he was doing to like sabotage my gym. And then also, being from Bowmanville, at that point, I grew up with a lot of people that ended up working in the city. And when we started trying to throw shows, they'd be like, hey, this guy walked into the city showing these documents that like people can get paralyzed and this event shouldn't happen. I'm like, well, who was it? So I started finding that out. Then I got Barry McDonald, and he started telling me stories how he was calling the cops on me and doing this and doing that. So the amount of sabotage that I heard he was doing to try to shut my gym down after I moved there out of respect for him having a gym in this town. Once I heard all that nonsense and everything they were trying to do to like sabotage me and kind of bring my gym down, when I got evicted out of the second Curtis location, I'm like, and I found this, I'm like, I'm going to Bowmanville, I'm going to take over Bowmanville. So, I was nice when I started, But after that, I was like, all right, game on, let's go. So here we are.
Is that the same gym I think it is?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if there's a reason you didn't say the name. So
I think everybody can figure it out.
Sure, of course. Now let's talk a bit about the fight life.
Yep.
Right. When did you start fighting? And like you mentioned, how was it like? How many fights did you have? Start with that. We'll work from there.
I'd probably say like what happened was it was actually Brad De Silva, who's my best man, and ended up becoming a manager. And it all started when, we were always scrapping in high school and hockey, and I played hockey for many years. And I remember I got called up to the Green Gales, and I never played a game of lacrosse in my life, but it was just literally they were paying me to fight.
Yeah.
And Brad knew I could fight. I was getting into trouble here and there because I just like scrapping. And Brad's like, we gotta lock you in a cage. And he goes, there's this, and this is when I was doing judo and Muay Thai. And he's like, you know what? He's like, we gotta lock you in a cage and take you somewhere and put you in. And I don't know how he found it out, but he ended up finding some places in Michigan, upstate New York, and all that. And he's like, we're gonna put you in a cage, and we're gonna start locking you in a cage to fight. And I'm like, sure. So Brad set it up. Him and his wife at the time started driving me around to all over the States and putting me in a cage, and I started just knocking guys out and winning, and loved it, right? And it was good for me too, because at that time, if I would do a fight camp, it was good because I'd stay sober.
Yeah.
I'm clean, diet's good, I'm in the best shape of my life, and I would do that 8 weeks, fight, party for a week. 8 weeks, fight, party for a week. And I did that for years. And that was just and I loved the celebratory week. That was the favorite thing I looked forward to. But it was just the earned sacrifice and discipline of those 8 weeks was just yeah, here we go. And I really loved my week off after knocking somebody out. And, but yeah, so fights, I fought 3 times in Thailand, and MMA, we fought on a lot of unsanctioned events at the time. So there was never any tracking of it, and I probably ended up having about 30 MMA fights in total across the United States and in Quebec.
Yeah.
But this was all when it was unsanctioned. Some of the amateur stuff was bare elbows to the face, knees to the head. So this is how old school it was before they started cleaning it up a bit, right? So yeah.
And you kind of mentioned the amateur. What was it like for the pro scene? What was different about it? Was it just you getting paid now?
At that time, it was just the rounds and getting paid, really, because you could go down to Lansing, Michigan, or wherever, and fight 3-minute rounds, but full rules.
Yes.
So it's the only thing different is the extra 2 minutes, right? So that was the only difference at the time. So, but now they're as the years have gone on, they've changed it so that if you're an amateur, there's no elbows, there's no knees to the head. So they've dialed the rules back. I think there's issues that have happened throughout the years where they're
sure,
let's put some more rules on this and tighten things up. So yeah.
And how many Thai/kickboxing fights did you have?
Oh geez, I'd probably say maybe close to 20. I wish I had more accurate numbers for you, but
yeah. That was a question right from Logan Paxton. He messaged me that, so he said,
nice.
Make sure you ask him.
Logan Paxton. Hope that kid gets back into jiu-jitsu. He's taking a little break, but good kid.
Now I have to know, with the decision that you stopped fighting to focus solely on the gym and develop, how tough of that decision was it? Were you still thinking about fighting when the gym was going on?
Yeah, there was a time and a place, but as I started seeing the success of the business, and I'm now I can make rent.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now I can buy a car.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can ask my wife to marry me. Now I can do this. So I'm I wanted to start building a future and building more of a foundation. And I really enjoyed also seeing the success of my students. So seeing that I could be a good coach and develop top talent and win at these big local tournaments and events, that was more rewarding for me at that time. Yeah, there's still a part of you that wants to compete, but part of what I wanted to also work on was then it was getting into jiu-jitsu and improving my jiu-jitsu, because it was judo and Muay Thai. And then I'm okay, got choked out in one of my fights that I should have won, and I'm All right, so I went into Bruckman, started training jiu-jitsu. So I enjoyed that journey now because I still had an ambition to get better at jiu-jitsu. And then my goal then was, hey, get your black belt. So did that. And sorry, what was that question again?
I was just asking, you know, how tough was that decision, you know, while you were operating?
Yeah, so it was tough, but like, you know, I'd still be able to spar with the boys and stuff like that. But then I did take a couple fights just randomly a couple years after to just get back in there and do it again. And that was just to know that I could do it because I did miss it. But, you know, I also knew that, you know, to do a fight camp, the gym would struggle, right? So it's like if I have to focus on myself, it's going to take away from the gym. And I needed to have all my energy for the members and for the gym at that time. Because then it was like, as opposed to now, it was like me running the gym.
Yes.
Right? Kids classes, after school program, this, that. It was me with like a little bit of support here and there, whereas opposed to now, it's like, okay, maybe things could be a little different because I got a lot of help and a lot of other coaches, right? But yeah, it's always tough, man. Once you're a fighter, you're always a fighter, and you always want to, you know, get out there. But I think jiu-jitsu was probably the best thing to happen to me after fighting because I could still compete at a high level, not take too many shots, and that was part of it too. Is like part of why I did want to take a break was like, you know, I started seeing myself stuttering on words. You know, repeating myself sometimes. I'm like, I've taken a lot of shots in training, in sparring. Like a lot of the biggest fights I would have were like just sparring fest in Thailand or sparring here. And I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna take a little break, get my head right, fix the business. And so, yeah, it was hard, but I'm happy where I'm at now.
Are you done?
Am I done? Fighting Muay Thai, yes. There's some parts of me that wanna like do one more MMA fight. But I think I'm gonna like first just get competing in jiu-jitsu will be my next step. So, you know, I have to balance out having the kid and the wife, but I do want my son to be able to watch me fight. So I'm like, I think that would be pretty cool. So I think in the next couple years, my plan is to start dabbling into some jiu-jitsu tournaments, see how I feel there, and then maybe take, if we do another Durham Fight Series in Oshawa, maybe do one more MMA fight just in Bowmanville. But I'd like my son to be like 3, 4, 5 to be able to come and watch and take him into the cage and then call it a day. But I think it'll be just jiu-jitsu events going forward for me.
And how much does age play a factor in, you know, the old retirement?
And everything. It's huge, but like that's why it would have to be age appropriate, find somebody else close to my age. But it's a young man's sport now, right? Like if you want to get to the UFC, you got to be under 30 years old, under 27 years old,
really?
Right? With a winning record already. So it's a young man's sport, man. Age is, you know, age catches up to everybody, and it's a factor. So, and I know that.
Yes.
Right?
Now I want to talk about how we met, but before that, you know, let's talk about, you know, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, right? That's very common in the fight scene, right? What have been the highest of highs for you in fighting and the lowest of lows?
Highest of highs would probably just be like when you had a couple good ones, like, you know, anytime you win by knockout, or I had a one-punch knockout in Kanawaki, that was pretty fun. But just, you know, and then I remember I worked my way up through the SSFL in Michigan. I won like 4 or 5 fights, and then I ended up taking on their champion at that time, Johnny Walker. And I remember ended up knocking him out in the second round. Those are probably some of the highs of fighting. Fighting in Thailand was amazing. Fighting in Thailand was like, that was a dream come true. Because I remember there was like nobody there. Just the Thai coaches, and like going through those motions was really good. And after the fights, just walking around by myself, drinking a Chang beer, and had my shins all taped up with ice packs, right?
Yeah.
The lowest of lows, yeah, probably like getting knocked out, or, you know, I'll be totally honest with you, losing a fight because your conditioning wasn't up to par. When you know you could have beat the guy, but your conditioning let you down, and that was because your own undisciplined work ethic or discipline in fight camp that you did, that showed in the fight. So, you know, as I remember I was winning a bunch of fights, and then I'm like, okay, I don't need to train as hard, or I could smoke a joint here and there. And then I got into, I can't remember what fight, but I remember it was one where I just remember huffing and puffing for air. And it was one of the worst feelings I had, because I knew I was better than the guy, but it was just my cardio that let me down. And I think that's more like reflecting on yourself, to be like, you know, that was you. You made that mistake. You were undisciplined. And that was probably the lowest of the low, knowing that I wasn't as disciplined as I should have been. So then after that, it was like never again, right? And that's why I preach to guys here. I'm like, man, there's no days off. It is discipline from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And let's talk about the emotional kind of battle of winning and losing, right? I mean, I've experienced, but not at the same level of you, right? So what's the emotions for winning versus losing, right? I mean, I know a lot of fighters go through major depression when they lose, right? It's like the whole world's collapsing on them.
Yeah, no, for me, it was like I just stayed busy. So it's like, get on to the next one. Like, you know, I would never get depressed if I lost. You know, I was thankful a lot of my fights, I would stop the fights early so they didn't have to go to a decision. But I've never really been robbed on a decision other than once. But it was just like, get back to the drawing board, get back out there. But I've never really been ever depressed from losing. It's a fight, man. There's, you know, when you travel around Thailand, seeing how some of these kids live and they have no choice other than to fight, like I'm fighting for fun and because I love it, right?
Yeah.
So, no, I've never really been depressed if I lost a fight. Who cares? On to the next one.
Yeah. I want to check this real quick, and then I got some good ones here for you. Yeah, we're still rocking and rolling.
Perfect.
Good. Didn't want the same thing to happen to Luke.
Oh.
We spent like 3 hours doing it or whatever, and it was like, it stopped somewhere in between. Talk about some of the first staff that you have, right? So Barry, Nick, Clint.
Yeah.
Right. How did you meet those guys, and how did they end up joining you, Darren?
So how I met Barry was at Bruckman's, and I knew Barry from way before, right? I knew Barry from way before, but what happened is he ended up having a fallout with the owners of the club in Bowmanville, right? And they ended up, you know, robbing him of money, not paying him for some time. The owner would take off to Thailand and be like, I'll pay you when I get back, and then came back and didn't pay him, and they were just doing a whole bunch of stuff in the gym where he ended up having a fallout with them. So he ended up going to Bruckman's, and he was coaching there. And that was at the time when I showed up to Bruckman's and we were sparring, and we just sat down after, and he was kind of just telling me where he's at. And I just had the fallout with Tristan, so we were both kind of in the same position. I'm like, well, why don't you come to my place and start working there a couple days a week? So then he started coming to my place, and Barry was awesome, man. Me and him just clicked. We just got along. We were like we both knew how it was. We both been through the same kind of thing, and Barry helped me with the boxing for 2 or 3 years, and I brought him in for one fight too. Oh, that's what it was. Sorry, so long ago. How it happened was I had a fight coming up, and I had Barry come in to help me with my hands.
Yeah.
And we worked on this one combo because I was fighting a southpaw. And we worked on this one combo where it was like hitting the jab high, 2 to the body, and then coming back upstairs with the 3. So it was like level changing on the southpaw, but hitting the 2 to the body to drop their hands and coming up with a 3. And I knocked the guy out with that combo. So then after that, I was like, hey, you got to come work for me. I'll pay you a couple bucks. And, you know, Barry was a huge part of replacing my brother at that time and helping me take Kalsamrit to where it is now. And, you know, miss that guy. It's unfortunate. He just moved out to Alberta, which sucks. But hopefully we see Barry come back.
Yeah. I didn't ask you this. I should have asked it before, but it jogged my mind here. Are you still in connection with your brother?
No, I haven't spoken to him since 2011 because after he left the gym and took off, it would have been about 3 years later. 3 years later, after, you know, in the gym, I think he knew like the gym was like right there where it was either going down or like, he's like, all right, we'll see if you can run this without me. And then I'm like, I have no choice. Yeah. So I ran it. And then 3 years later, he ended up trying to sue me.
Wow.
It was, yeah. And for me, I'm like, family doesn't sue family.
Yeah.
And like me and him have like grown up together, fought together, took care of each other, sent each other to Thailand, and then I'm like, to turn around and sue me and not even talk to me. The case was thrown right out. Like it was the judge was embarrassed, threw it right out. But after that, I was just like, no, if you're gonna do that, then I just got no time for you, right? And there was more to it. But I don't know if the podcast wants to hear all of it, but yeah. Anyway.
And what's the family dynamic like? I mean,
the family dynamic's good, man. I got the best parents in the world. Graham, he's teaching at Hayabusa Gym out in Kingston, so we communicate and work with them. So he's out there and he pops out here and trains every once in a while, but we still work together on getting fights. But yeah, other than Tristan, family's great.
Yeah. Now I have to ask about some of the other OG employees, right? Clint's a big one.
Yeah.
Right? How'd you meet Clint?
Clint was training there. So Clint was up the road when I was in Curtis at Kumo Jiu-Jitsu. And we had the club down the road, and we didn't have jiu-jitsu at the time in 2011. And he came down because we knew each other from high school. Oh, sorry. I kicked the shit out into Clinton High School. And then he heard I opened a gym, and he ended up coming down and signing up, and then started training with us. And then I ended up, he's so good with the kids. I'm like, well, you want to help me with the kids' classes? Because Clint was broke. So I ended up giving him a free membership. I'm like, help me with the kids and we'll help you out. And he did a great job with the kids, man. He really helped get the kids up and going and gave me some support to go from there. So that's how we got Clint.
Nick, Darren.
Yeah, Nick and so Darren was another one too, where he left the club in Bowmanville on bad terms. And I think at the time when he was like, let's say a white short.
Sure.
And he was over there. They had this one coach that has never fought or competed before that wanted to showboat to a bunch of his students that he was the top dog, and he ended up knocking Darren unconscious when like Darren was like in his first, I guess 6 months to a year of training. And, you know, he ended up leaving there on bad terms. And how did he end up finding my place? I can't remember exactly how he came in. Oh, through Barry.
Was it through Barry?
Through Barry. Yeah. So he ended up coming in after Barry left and whatever. And then Nick Cambasis was training at Ishigogyu, and he fought on one of our carts on the other team. And he fought our guys. And we just kind of got to know each other there. And I think Nick ended up, it was Nick and Dom. He had a buddy Dom at the time, both from that gym, and they fought our guys. I think we won. And then after that, we kind of invited him out to come and train with us, and that's how the ball started rolling there.
And now I have to ask about Bubba, right? Bubba now is the hottest topic in the world, it feels like, right?
Bubba? Okay, yeah.
What happened with Bubba, right? Talk about Bubba.
So what do you mean what happened with Bubba?
So, like, his dad described it where they started training, and then there was a little bit of a pull away, and then...
Yeah, so we had Bubba's cousins with Peyton Corrigan.
Yes.
And Peyton Corrigan is one of the kids I had. He was one of my first students, actually, from Curtis.
Yes.
And he was one of our first students on the come up. And he, in my opinion, probably one of the more successful fighters that came out of this gym. And that's my goal. Like, I'm seeing all these guys that we bring in and bring up and have success. Like Peyton, he was one of them, and now all these kids, they grow up, they had a successful career, they stayed in a good environment here, made lots of friends, traveled the world, fought, competed at a high level, and now they're getting into the trades, making their own life. And for me, that's the biggest form of success. Like Karate Kid, same thing. He came up here, now he's getting into the trades. So that was the biggest thing for me, but Peyton is Bubba's cousin.
Yes.
So they were getting ready for a fight, because Bubba's from Bewdley.
Yeah.
They were getting ready for a fight up in Peterborough, and they wanted some more training. So we invited them to come down and train with Peyton and the rest of the guys that we had here. And he just came here to love the training, and he's been here ever since.
Was that at this gym, or was that?
That was this gym. Yeah. So we would have been here, I think. Geez, I don't even know. 2014, I want to say. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then he's come up all the way from shorts.
Yeah. Started as a white short and worked his way up to black short. So yeah, Bubba's done a good job.
Okay. And now, speaking about the business, what are some tips for new gym business owners that you would give?
Oh, great one. Okay, so like you're opening a gym, what's my advice?
You got it.
Location. Location is a big one. The amount of rent that you're paying is a big one. And then what the area clientele is like. Like, are you downtown Toronto and your clientele is going to be different? Like, are you in a family area, whereas like this is a bedroom community right here. Like, it's all families, which I love. That's the area I want to be in. But I'd say number one, location. Number two, the price of rent that you're going to be paying, your schedule, and your pricing. There you go.
Okay.
Figure all that out.
And this kind of jumps right into kind of my next thing here. When I kind of first joined the gym, it seemed like it was a very competitive mindset.
Last thing. I'm going to go back one more. And the other biggest thing, I see a lot of gym owners, and this is probably one of the biggest things, you have to teach kids. If you don't want to run a kids program, you're not going to have a successful gym. Or if you just focus on fighters and fight team, the fighters do not pay the bills. That's like a passion project. That's what I enjoy doing. That's what I like to do. But there's more just headaches and hard work for free doing fighters. And I see a lot of people that they want to open a gym and have a huge fight team, but not want to teach kids. I'm like, man, the kids pay the bills.
Yes.
Number one. So that'd be my advice. If you're not willing to teach kids, don't open a gym.
Okay, I want to jump back on kids in a little bit.
Okay.
It seems like the dynamic of the gym's changed a lot, even since when I joined. When I joined, it was a very competitive gym, you know, and the fact that you had to try out to make a fight team. You had to go through all these different various steps that were made to be tough for that reason.
Yeah.
Right? And the gym's very much kind of like what you just, you know, insinuated. It's now of a community family gym. Mm-hmm. Right? What was the change in the mindset for that?
I'd say, I don't know if there's much. You could do tryouts all you want for like adults and stuff like that. I would say we are getting, I would say not getting less competitive. I'd say we're getting probably more competitive. I'd say if we look back to 3-4 years ago, we didn't have pro MMA fighters out of the gym. Now we have pro MMA fighters out of the gym. We got Bubba fighting. You got Ethan Harrod on the come up.
Yep.
So now we've went from having amateur performers at the MMA level, the Muay Thai level, to now the pro level. So I've seen us go now from amateur to the pro level. For our kids, I would say I totally disagree with what you said, that we're a non-competitive gym, because who was the most successful team at Canadian Nationals in 2023?
Who
was the most successful team with the most belts won in 2023?
100%. It's
Kalsamrit Gym.
Right.
So we had that. For our jiu-jitsu, I would say the same thing. Like we just won, you know, there's been multiple events now where we're part of winning the best team award. Our kids are competing at a super high level. As for the tryouts, I might have veered away from the tryouts, because I don't think I need to do a 1-day or a 2-day tryout to see who's tough enough to do it. We see that in the gym every day. Mm-hmm. Like I know who's in the gym every morning. I know who's in the gym every night. I know who shies away from sparring. I know who's putting in the work. So I think I veered away from doing tryouts, where I'm like, okay, I'd set higher standards for like our junior fight team and our jiu-jitsu competition team. So we're going to have our classes. Like, do they show up to all the extra classes they need to do? Are they putting in the work? Are they doing the extra stuff? So I say, instead of doing tryouts, we are more or less making them train harder in the classes and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Do you think it has changed? Or do you think it was always a family community gym?
I think it always was a family community gym. Like changing as in like how do you mean it?
So I would even say like even just, you know, the artwork and, you know, everything around it's geared towards, you know, your home now, right?
Yeah.
It's right down there. You know, we do more family events.
Yeah.
Right. We do more team building, community family building events with that.
So
right? Mom and dad, show up to jiu-jitsu, stuff like that.
That's for sure. Okay, so I get what you're saying now. So how is the gym changed? Like every, you know, and I think people have seen it.
Yeah.
It's like every year. I reinvest into the gym.
Yes.
Every year. So it's like the room we're sitting in now. We never had this room before.
Yeah.
The room next door, we never had that room before. You know, fresh paint, fresh gear, new weight room, TVs in the lobby. So like every year I'm always trying to improve the facility and make it better. And then as it goes for events in the gym, we try to cater a little bit to everything. So it's like, you know, all the moms that drop their kids off are in the ladies kickboxing class. We did a ladies wine night for them, for the ladies.
Yep.
We have our jiu-jitsu fight nights. We have our Muay Thai fight nights. I'll have a kids Valentine's Day party or a kids sleepover party. So we try to do a little bit so that every person in the family can feel involved. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're a family, you know, let's say mom and dad can train jiu-jitsu, mom can do kickbox, and the kids can train.
Yeah.
There's Customer Appreciation Day party where everybody can have fun and everybody knows each other. It's like you look at like Naz's family with Sydney that did like he was just in today. That's why I was just saying goodbye to him. But you know, someone like him, he came to sign up his daughter. Yeah. Daughter's training, becomes super successful. She's having fun. She said, "Well, Dad, you need to get in there."
Yes.
Dad gets in there, loses a bunch of weight. He's having fun. We set a goal for him. He does a beginner in-house night. Yep. Then the mom's like, "I'm getting in there, doing kickboxing." So we try to cater the gym to be able to cater to the entire family. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you touched a little bit on it with the junior fight team.
Yeah.
You know, what advice would you give to younger fighters, adult and kids?
To be successful, or like, so do you want me to talk to my kids or talk to the adults?
Well, I think the advice would probably change, right?
Yeah, like for me, to be totally honest with you, I much more prefer coaching kids and early teens.
Okay.
The reason I like coaching kids and early teens for fight purposes and like for events is because they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't have bad habits, they don't have girlfriends.
Yeah.
They have a schedule where their parents are going to drive them to the gym. If I say 5 days a week, they're in the gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever it is. They're coachable, and there's less issues. So I have more fun and more success out of developing that age group. Whereas once you get into the adults, you know, the issues we find, it's like, okay, are they cheating on their diet? Is their girlfriend bringing them down? Is work getting in the way? So I'm having more fun training these little animals that basically do everything that I say. And I have more fun doing that because you're going to see that success out of them, if that makes sense.
So what advice would you give to younger fighters? Just listen?
Younger fighters?
Yeah.
Be coachable.
Okay.
Be disciplined. Like, listen to your coach.
Yep.
Be disciplined and put in the extra work. And, put in the extra work on your own and make it a lifestyle. You have to be all in for fighting. It can't be, we're seeing that a little bit here too. We got some kids that want to play hockey, but they still want to fight. I'm like, ugh. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I think if you want to fight, you got to be all in on fighting, and it's got to be like basically your life.
And would you say that for adults too?
Yeah, for adults that want to do it casual or part-time, or...
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, is there such a thing as a casual fight?
I'd say you have to, if you're training consistent, and then if you're training consistent and because here's the thing, all adults, parents have to work. We got to work our 40, 50 hours a week. Yeah. And then we got kids. So I get all that. So you need to somehow manage your own training around that. And yeah, it's real, man. It's a tough one because it's the thing. Here's the thing. I know when I got some adults or pros getting ready that they're not working. Yeah. They're literally training 8 hours a day, or let's say 4 or 5 hours a day. Yep. Eat, sleep, train. Yeah. So, but then there's other guys like a James Clark who will go out and fucking roof all day and then train all night. Yeah. So I think it comes down to the individual. Yes, it's possible like to fight. You just got to really balance out your schedule and your work-life balance, if that makes sense. But the biggest thing would be just stay disciplined, keeping a healthy diet, not drinking, not smoking. I'm a firm believer in that. And if you can stay disciplined, keep a healthy diet, and manage your training schedule, then it can be done. But make sure you're getting your sparring in and you're getting all your other work in. Don't have your first sparring night in the ring. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about sparring, right? Okay. Especially back in the older days. I've noticed it's actually a lot safer now, right? And again, I don't know if that goes to more of a family atmosphere because you don't want to see some kid watch his dad get knocked out in sparring, or what it would be. But definitely back when I was coming here first to begin with, it was almost like
fighting.
Yeah, it was fighting. Yeah. It very much was, right? And as much as I think it's good to put those rounds in, because there's a select few of us that have been here, we know. Like, you've been through that, I've been through that. Yeah. We know, so now we can teach the younger generation of, be selective on who you're going hard with, right? You can go hard with someone, but don't pop at the last second if you know they're already half out, right? So back with sparring, what tips would you give for sparring and talking about maybe the older days and how it's changed? Was there ever a time that you would, maybe send mat enforcers or somebody over there to kind of give them
mat enforcers? Teach them a lesson. We used to have that all the time. Like a lot of times have changed, but when we first started, or a lot of clubs that started, it was fighting. Like you're coming out, you're fighting. You do need as a fighter to go through camps and have that involved in some of your camps. If you've never done that, then learning it in the ring when you're getting hit or you're under pressure or somebody's better than you. You don't want to learn in the actual fight. We've dialed it back where there's a time and a place. Like for the guys that fight like under me, there's a time and a place for that hard sparring that needs to happen. And it needs to happen CTE's real, concussions are real, and longevity of the fighters are real. We've started dialing it back where sparring is not going to be so hard, but like for those that are in a serious camp, we will private room. It's not going to be on the Tuesday nights when everybody
Yeah.
spars. Tuesday night's going to be for everybody to spar at like 70, 80% just to get the flow going. But those guys that do fight, that do the private camps, they're going to get that hard sparring in so that they're ready for the real thing. My kids, no, today they sparred. They sparred at 100% today because they're getting ready for nationals April 1st. So we're under 2 months out. So now's the time to spar hard. Get that hard sparring out of the way now. See where they're weak, see what they're getting flustered at, see what they need to improve on, and then the next week we dial it back. We focus on technique, speed, agility, fitness, conditioning. Then we get into some light sparring. So we'll probably do 1 or 2 heavy, hard sparring sessions and then lighten it up as we go. But there's a time and a place for it. But yeah, I have kept it a little bit lighter here to keep the sparring more casual, sport, fun, and then the hard sparring, that's when the guys that fight at the more elite level or on the shows, they know when that sparring happens.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, you're talking about the fight team kids today.
Yeah.
Right? It's not general kids sparring in the
no.
mismatch
The general kids sparring in the classes is going to be 50%.
Yeah.
Right? The
Touch
fight team
go,
kids, they're going to be 70, 80%.
Yeah.
And then those that are really getting ready for war, we'll go 100% for sure.
Yeah, and you talked about CTE, right? Let's talk a little bit about injuries that you've had happen, and maybe ways you can avoid it. So obviously, any concussions, any major other injuries, stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say just knowing, like when we do our camps too, like we know, like if you've been sparring a lot and you're feeling dizzy, like we know now, hey, dial it back. Like you do need to rest your brain. Like there is, it is a muscle, and you gotta take care of your brain. You only got one. So we know when to dial back our sparring and focus on other things. But injuries that I've had, just rolled ankles, broken hands, broken fingers, concussions, all that, everything. Nothing major like a Bruckman breaking my neck or anything like that. No, I've been pretty lucky that way.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to people who want to avoid those injuries? Or is that just something that...
Injuries are going to happen.
Part of it.
And everybody, if you do a proper camp, you're going to be, something's going to be hurting you.
Yeah.
Your hand's going to be hurting, your ankle's going to be hurting, your knee's going to be hurting. Nobody goes into a fight at 100% healthy. You're going to have injuries if you've done a camp. Like the wear and tear on your body for a camp is... Everybody knows it's going to happen. You're never going to be 100% healthy getting into a fight. Maybe the odd time, but there's going to be something that's dampening you down, right? For sure.
Okay. I want to take a pause.